Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
And we're back.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to our show. I'm really tired.
Yeah, I can tell.
Oh.
It makes for a good show, though, when both the hosts are kind of just like, eh.
Yeah. It's just, I'm thinking like, this podcast thing will be over soon.
Like, oh, what a dick. They edited in yawns over Steve part. And it's like, no. This gentle snoring you hear in the background is Ben. He's falling asleep.
We're getting creative with our bleeps and censorship. You stupid mother.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, if you haven't listened to the Non-Essential Podcast before, every week me and Steve get together and tell each other stories, fact, fiction, history, lore, where there's no criteria beyond just some being interesting to us every week. Last week I talked about a guy who either was really, really stupid or just really, really depressed and sailed his boat into the Atlantic Ocean, never to be seen again.
I'll have to. I looked up the boat afterwards because I know you had said that there's picture, and obviously because we tweeted a picture. It was not what I was picturing though, because you talked about it was this rickety boat that it was obvious that he was not going to successfully complete the journey.
Rickety in the sense that he wasn't going to be able to sail around the world in it in a fast, in a way to win a race.
Right, especially since he wasn't an experienced
and
sailor.
it did leak. And they knew that when they were testing it.
But see, I was kind of picturing this like that boat from the end of Shawshank, where he's on the beach, sanding it down, and it looked like a normal catamaran, or I think that's the right type of boat there.
Catamaran sounds like a cookie to me. So.
Damn you, Girl Scouts! I'll take 10 catamarans.
All right, me and my friends went to the store the other day. This is a tangent, but we're at that point where Girl Scouts are outside grocery stores selling cookies and stuff, and me and my friends are all poor, so we don't buy Girl Scout cookies, even though some of them are really good. And one girl had a real fucking attitude about us. I said no thank you, and she was like, have a good day. And
you should have turned around and been like, look, you're going to go far, kid.
And I'm like, look, let me give you some advice. Never sell anything if you're not getting a cut of it. You're being used here. This is fucking slave labor.
You got moxie, kid. I'll take 10 boxes.
Now let me tell you something. See, if you sell this cocaine, you'll get a cut. And that's how I got arrested.
That's what I hate Girl Scout cookie season. Not because of the cookies. They're awesome, although we tend to not buy a lot. But because of that, I'm the kind of person, even if I want Girl Scout cookies, I don't want to talk to Girl Scouts in front of a store.
It's I'm going into a store, and my friend was saying how he felt bad because he went into the store, bought cookies, and then came back out and had to hide them from the Girl Scouts.
Oh, I would have been openly eating them.
Yeah, it's not a great look, but it's look, these were half the price
here. Yeah, there's a game plan in place. I got a budget.
Even Thin Mints aren't that unique anymore. There's an equivalent in the store.
I think they sell. I think the Girl Scouts actually sell the cookies online now.
Which they should. They should just sell them online. Stop making the kids. Have the Girl Scouts go fucking do fun children shit. What?
And then you avoid that. Like I said, the awkward having to pretend you don't see them, or say no to a little kid or a bunch of little kids.
It's less awkward for me, and you're we're not teaching our children at 8 how to fucking the goddamn sickening salesmanship. Right. They can be kids for a little while.
Anyway, that's not the kind of story we tell on the show, but it is the kind of tangents we go on.
Yeah. Last week for me, we talked about that guy, and it kind of became a little heavy, which is fine. Every now and then we think we know more than we do and have serious conversations. And,
Yeah.
you know, and it's important to cleanse your palate a little bit after something like that and just go for something silly. And I went back to my maybe not my favorite well, but my original well of Japanese monsters.
There's a lot of them.
I found a great site, and it'll be the source for all of these descriptions. And it will be the source of more descriptions and more episodes going forward, because this is just, it's called yokai.com, and it's just Japanese monsters. Like, not so much like the like urban legend types, but more like the mythological Japanese monsters. So we're going to touch on a few of those today, and then I'm going to be done. And I'm going to, you know, I'll let you do your thing, and then I'm going to nap. That's my plan. So the Kamaitachi, or the Kamaitachi, they spell it as one word and two words, so I'm not sure which is right. But its English meaning is Sicko Weasel.
Pickle Weasel?
Sickle.
Sicko. Oh, I like Pickle Weasel better.
The Pickle Weasel's different. He's not a monster. He's a friend. In the mountainous regions of Japan, or anywhere weasels are found, I guess, these creatures supposedly move so quick that they're invisible to the naked eye. But if you could see them, you would see spiny fur like a hedgehog and steel-like claws that are as sharp as razors. They are able to ride swirling whirlwinds, and they attack people in threes. So the first Sicko Weasel will slice the victim's legs, knocking him down. The second uses its legs to slice up the victim with thousands of dreadful cuts. And the third one then applies a magical salve, which will heal up almost all the wounds instantly, so these attacks are never fatal.
It's the best kind of monster. The one that almost kills you, then instantly heals you so fast you don't know it even happened.
Right. So it's said that they do this with such precision so that they can carve out entire chunks of flesh without a drop of blood actually being spilled. And from the victim's perspective, he merely tripped and has a few scratches here or there. Like, this is just such a bafflingly convoluted legend to build around the idea of, I tripped in the woods once.
Oh, yeah, well, like, I like to think it was some guy that drank all the time, and he got home all scratched up, and his wife's yelling, I'm like, look, you drunken fool, you fucking tripped again. He's like, Sicko Weasel.
I was attacked by the Kamaitachi.
You're telling me a weasel did this? No, I'm telling you 3 weasels did.
I'm telling you whirlwind riders came for me. So yeah, that's it.
I'm sensing a great opportunity there for a Sicko Weasel like diet plan where they just carve out chunks of my fat without me knowing it. Yeah. Until one day I'm just like, hey, I'm a lot skinnier than I thought I was.
Right. The first weasel has the best job because he just has to do like one simple thing, like knock the guy down, and then everybody else has like the other one has to be basically a butcher and the other one has to be a doctor.
Do you think they take turns, or do they have like designated roles?
I bet they one person thinks they should take turns, and then the other two think they have roles.
Imagine if they were like Overwatch, and it's like all 3 pick the job of taking the person down. They're like, God damn it, that's not the right comp.
Yeah, they draw strings, but so next,
it's a Sicko Weasel.
Yeah, the Juragumo and the Tsuchigumo. I put these ones together because they're both spiders, which...
Oh, yay. Your favorite.
Yeah. And it's no coincidence that these are the ones I wrote the most about. The Juragumo is the most well-known of the spider yokai. Supposedly their name means entangling bride, but that was a later alteration to their original name, which was whore spider, which is exactly what I'm sure many last words were of the young men caught by one of these monsters. So the first 400 years of its life, these are just golden Orbweavers. They're just basic spiders.
Which are, I get a ton of them around here, and they're like the most terrifying looking, but also kind of the most okay, like they'll leave you alone spiders.
Until after 400 years, my friend, because then they develop magical powers and a hunger for human prey. Making their nests in caves, forests, or empty houses in towns, Their cunning intellect, cold heart, and magical powers have them shape-shifting into gorgeous women to attract young men looking for companionship, which I don't know how cunning you actually have to be to know men are easily lured by beautiful women, but yeah, you're a genius. And it's a perfect plan. If she invites a man to her home, he's usually never seen again, as they get ensnared in her web and given venom daily so she can enjoy their painful death for as long as possible. Apparently they also have this just random ass ability to control lesser spider demons, including those that breathe fire, so as to burn down homes of anyone who may grow suspicious of them. So it's like, even if you're like, something's off with that fucking beautiful woman next door, it's like
she's got 8 legs. It's weird.
I see her crawling on the ceiling, and then it's like, your house is going to get burned down for your trouble. It's said that the Jurogumo can operate like this for years, even in the middle of the busiest of cities. And this is what, this is why arachnophobia is not unreasonable. Like, I've been saying it for years.
Where do they get apartments, though?
These fucking things are a problem, and I'm sure it's true. I'm positive this is not a legend, it's fact. Anyway, the Tsuchigumo is a little less elaborate. It's just a big fucking spider. And you would think that by being a giant spider, like, physically you would have all the advantages you would need. But this one also, for some reason, tries to rely on magical tricks and illusions. And it, according to history, or legend anyway, it never works out. So the accounts of a legendary Japanese warrior, Minamoto no Yorimitsu, contain many run-ins with these big fuckers. One time a servant boy tried to administer venom to Yorimitsu in the guise of it being medicine. Yorimitsu was quickly realized that his wounds weren't healing from this medicine, and he suspected foul play and immediately slashed at the boy with his sword. Because that's the proper reaction. Like, hey, this isn't working. Die. The boy fled into the forest and broke the spider's spell on Yorimitsu, who realized he had been covered in spider webs all along. Following the trail of blood, they found the body of the giant spider dead from Yorimitsu's wound. In another story, the spider took the form of a warrior woman, leading an army of yokai ready to take Japan. Yorimitsu and his men went out and met the army in battle, and Yorimitsu struck the woman first, like any good hero.
Right.
Suddenly, the army vanished for the illusion that it was, and the group chased the woman back to a cave in the mountains. Transforming into a giant spider, of course, Yorimitsu sliced her abdomen open with one cut of his blade, and thousands of baby spiders the size of infants swarmed out of her. Which is just my fucking every nightmare I've had.
That's when I just say, you guys get the country, Japan, that island's yours, I'm out.
Yeah, my whole thing would be like, why'd you have the illusion of like normal demons if you led just an army of spiders?
Question. Oh, here's an army. It's like we're used to dealing with armies. Here's an army of spiders. Well, fuck.
All right, yeah. But apparently Yorimitsu would have just been like, oh, I kill these things all the time. Yorimitsu and his men slew every one of these spiders and returned home victorious. And it seems like, Yorimitsu comes up a few times when you read about these things, and it seems like all of his stories end with, well, that could have been way worse. It always...
Well, it makes me wonder, he's probably a real person that just didn't want to have to fight actual battles. So he made up this whole thing. He's like, I'm so good at killing spiders, y'all.
Yeah.
Don't come with me. Don't come with me. I'm going to go get this one. And it's big and bad.
And there's one guy like me, oh my God, he's amazing. He kills spiders?
Well, that's the Emperor was just afraid of spiders, so he kept him on the payroll.
Right. So yeah, spiders. The fucking big problem. Not just here, but everywhere. And Japan maybe got the worst of it. I guess all those giant spiders probably went down to Australia by now, but
it's spider season here. It's one of the things, like most normal, not terrible people, I can never wait for like winter to end and spring to be here. And you're like, all right, spring's here. Oh, you're right, bugs.
Yeah. I don't know if it's ever happened when we were doing this show, but I remember in our last podcast there was more than once where I had to pretend I was listening to you when I was really at war with some spider that crawled by me. And I remember like one took me like 5 minutes to like track down, and I was just going, yeah. But I didn't want to let on that there was something wrong and I was pissing myself.
So if I ever all of a sudden just hear like, have at ye, and you hear like sword sounds in the background, it's that you've encountered a particularly big spider and
you just
doing battle.
I like the idea that it's no bigger than a quarter, but I somehow lost and it's tying me up.
Send help.
Anyway, the next one, the Iton Momen. This is a small one. It's literally just a possessed cloth sheet that flies around the sky at night and attacks people by strangling or smothering them to death.
Second or third, I guess the one was that I can't remember now if that was a creepypasta you were reading about the Ragman or a actual legend from somewhere about. I think it was just a creepypasta.
Yeah, I think that was the one where you're not supposed to open your eyes or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say this is if we're up to like the number like the third like demonic piece of cloth in this show, then
I just like, and I encourage you to check out the sources on it because the site, I don't know if the dude responsible for the site hired the guy to draw the pictures or he did it himself or she. I didn't see who was really behind it, but like there's this picture of this one of just a guy with a cloth over his face in like a death struggle, and it's the
I can't breathe, but you smell like Downy, and it's delightful.
And it's just funny that like, because in Japan myth, and it's not the first time I've brought it up, but most any inanimate object can be a ghost, but for the most part they're more like mischievous. But this, like, there's something about being forced to be in a blanket that really pisses these guys off. So they just fly around looking for people to fucking kill. Which would be pretty terrifying, a blanket just suffocating you out of nowhere, but next up, the Otori Gitsune. The Iturra is a fox spirit who frequently possesses people as a form of revenge that started against locals who never rebuilt the shrine he lived in. Usually the sick and the infirmed were his targets, and they would adopt his powerful mannerisms and bizarre random storytelling. So, how to tell you or somebody you know is possessed by the Iturra. There will be a left eye discharge, which sounds really fucking disgusting. Like,
right.
Their left leg would suddenly hurt. And 3, the possessed will begin to talk about the Battle of Nagashino and that time they got shot and other related adventures that didn't happen to them.
So basically, you're having a stroke.
Right. That's the thing. If I heard somebody talking about Battle of Nagashino, I wouldn't think possession. I'd be like, all right, they fucking lost it.
Must be a new Call of Duty out. I don't know.
Yeah. Supposedly the legend is the fox lost its eye in the Battle of Nagashino as it was observing the battle from a grove when a stray bullet hit him. There are various stories about how the spirit lost its leg, including a paranoid general seeing a shadow and lashing at it with his blade. It could have been Yorimitsu. And then the spirit being shot when he was shapeshifted into a crow and just being really fucking annoying to one particular archer. Again, maybe Yorimitsu. But I did like that idea of just like, there are signs you could be possessed, and then there's like a really specific one if they start rambling about a battle they are never a part of.
Makes it real tough if he possesses a veteran of that battle. It's like, wait.
Yeah, it's like, wait, you were there. And you did lose your eye. The last one I got here, a bit more. I took the time to sort of type out the real legend here. This is the story of Goodgos, which is a monk monster named, I guess, after the temple it was haunting, but It never mentions the actual name in the story, so I'm just taking the article for what it said. So long ago in the Awari province, a thunder god fell out of the sky in a bolt of lightning. A peasant investigated the spot where the lightning struck and found the god in the form of a young boy. Doing what came naturally, he raised his cane to kill the creature. Fuck. Here I just...
You look like a young boy, but you gotta be a creature. Sorry, killing you with my cane.
Here I just wrote, fucking what? Like, why is that your reaction?
This young boy may have been struck by lightning, but I'm gonna kill him in case he's a creature.
Oh, shit. This isn't natural. I must preserve nature. But the god begged for his life, promising the peasant a young son as strong as a god if the peasant would assist him in getting back to heaven, which the peasant did by building a boat.
Well, Heaven Boat, yeah.
Heaven Boat, yeah. Great song, Heaven Boat. Anyway, the peasant and his wife did have a son, and true to the god's word, he was as strong as the thunder god. He became renowned for his strength and even won a contest against a prince, which earned him an apprenticeship at the temple of Gangaji, who is probably a very important, but it didn't say, and I didn't feel like looking up why. It's supposed to be a great temple. It's like when somebody brags about what college they went to. I don't know what that means either. So I'm just like, oh cool.
I was just about to say at Gangaji, it was known as the party temple. That's why everybody wanted to apprentice there.
Yeah. So shortly after the boy joined the temple, young apprentices began dying strange deaths one after another. Every morning, a new body would be found by the temple's bell tower. The monks knew an evil spirit was infiltrating the temple at night and committing the murders because no other explanation could work. And the peasant's son decided it was up to him to solve the mystery, which is some straight-up Harry Potter shit, honestly.
Right.
That night, the boy placed covered lanterns in the four corners of the tower and instructed an older monk to wait by the lanterns and uncover them once he grabbed the spirit. At midnight, a hunched creature came crawling towards the tower, but saw the boy and ran away. So you think, fuck, it didn't work. But the creature was hungry, so it just came right back. Again, I don't see why you couldn't just skip to this part. When it did, the boy sprang and caught it by the hair, but the monk was too frightened to uncover the lanterns. Using his, quote, godlike strength, the boy dragged the creature to each corner of the tower to uncover the lanterns himself, and in the full light he saw the creature in his grip was a Riki, which is a ghost demon. This demon pulled back so hard in the boy's grip that it ripped off his scalp. Free, it scampered away, leaving the boy with just the scalp and a bloody trail left by the creature. This trail led to a grave of a lazy, wicked servant formerly employed by the temple. He had transformed into this murdering demon ghost. After this confrontation, the demon never came back. The scalp became a treasure of the temple, so they're on some straight-up Bloodborne shit.
Yeah.
And the boy became famous, furthering his legend as a splendid priest after that. And after his death, he was enshrined in the temple as one of the gods. Because he grabbed somebody by the hair and ripped it off.
Ripped it off. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions about this story. Like, for starters, the thunder, I don't know if it's the thunder god or just like a thunder god. I don't know how that worked. But
it's Raiden, the thunder god from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, anyway, they fall to Earth, and this guy is going to kill him. And he says, "If you don't kill me, I'll give you a son with all this power that I have.
I'll give you a son who can fuck you up."
But he literally said, "I'll give you a son that's as strong as me." But
yeah,
he's afraid for his life. So how strong can he be?
But he was in the form of a boy then.
Yeah, well, yeah. But if he had true power, he could. Whatever.
But he fell.
We'll skip past that. And then what kind of video game shit is that where it's like, there's 4 lanterns, and until you uncover all 4, you can't see what you're holding?
Fucking right. It's the most like fucking lame-ass boss fight mechanic ever.
Right. Like, the way light physics work, you could uncover a lantern and hold whatever it is close to it, and it's like,
right.
Hey. But But I liked it because of that, because I was picturing like a boss fight the whole time, and then you said, "Oh, what kind of Bloodborne shit is that?" It's like, yes,
Yeah.
Except for Bloodborne had more clever mechanics on the bosses.
I was more referring to the idea of like keeping a scalp as a trophy, but yeah,
right. I imagine it's on like a shrine, and
yeah. A lot of Japanese myth is like just bad video game shit. In 2019, honestly.
Yeah, I'm picturing Vicar Amelia's like with a deer skull thing or whatever that.
Yeah.
But nobody knows what we're talking about. But
yeah, well, nobody's listening either. So. I'll talk about what I want to talk about. I'm alone, goddammit.
I love how all these. I'll say all these Japanese myths because that's what you focused on this week. But it seems like most of these like legends and myths throughout like human history. It's like, well, look. There's this supernatural, unbelievable thing that happens, but it manifests in such a way that it appears on all surface, like in every way, to be a normal thing.
Yeah,
it's like
that's a fucking great storytelling. It's like, hey, that little like completely inconsequential thing that happened to you. What if I told you it was the gods?
How do you know? We just do. We just know.
You know. So what?
Obvious, isn't it obvious that?
And if you don't believe, those little Sicko Weasels will come back, and maybe they won't have the ointment this time.
So that's what I was about to say. Tara always kind of makes fun of me because, not really makes fun of, but my nails, I always have like hangnails and like jagged edges on my nails and stuff. And I'm a particularly itchy person, so like at night I'll
cut myself till I bleed.
Pretty much, yeah. I'll wake up sometimes and it'll just be like these scratches all over. And maybe it's a Sicko Weasel. Maybe it's not me.
Maybe you are a Sicko Weasel.
Yeah, that could be too. Except you said they're incredibly fast and I'm incredibly slow. Like, yeah.
I want to see the Sicko Weasel out of shape. Like the wind can't carry him. So he's just like huffing behind the rest of the other two.
That's how they figured this whole thing out. There was the one fat Sicko Weasel that was like, hold on guys.
The first two do their thing, but he's the one with the ointment and he doesn't get there in time. They're like, oh fuck.
Damn it, Jerry.
Oh god. Sorry guys.
Fat Sicko Weasel. That's going to be my punk band name.
That's not a bad one. Sicko Weasel's a pretty good band name. Yeah. Feel free to jump on that shit, guys.
Legends.
We're legends.
So, mine is... It actually kind of falls in a lot of categories of the stuff that we...
Well, that's not fair. You got to pick one.
Well, how about I tell it, and then we'll decide which of the many themes it fits best.
All right.
So, Richard Blass, I think it's pronounced, was born in Montreal on October 24th, 1945. He became a boxer at a young age and also took an interest in the mafia that operated in Montreal and New York. Because, most kids, I like boxing and mobsters.
I have an interest in the mafia in terms of, I'm fascinated by that time. But was this, a professional interest?
I think, given the kind of podcast that we do, I think, that's a safe assumption.
This isn't about a guy who just liked documentaries?
Yeah. So, one day, I gave zero time frame, but it was corroborated on, 8 different articles I found of the guy. But just at some point in his young boxing career, a boxer by the name of Michael Goin beat him in a match, and it pissed Blass off, so he attacked him and stabbed him with a knife. Blass would plead guilty to the assault.
Round 13.
Right. And that's the thing, is he pled guilty to assault. He only spent a night in prison, but modern day times, I think that's all just part of the whole boxing scene. It's somebody has to assault somebody with something either before or after the match.
Modern day boxing, it's everybody agrees to what the outcome will be now, just to prevent those kinds of violent outbursts.
Yeah. But that officially started his criminal career. As I mentioned, he was obsessed with the mafia and mafia life, but oddly, he very much hated the mafia families that operated in and around Montreal. It's really that Richard resented that these powerful organizations were run by these like well-known Italian crime families, and that meant that him and his gang could only go after like the scraps. Because you know how the mafia is. They, if they're running like a drug racket here, good luck trying to like muscle in on that.
Yeah.
So it's more of a resentment. Like he wanted to be some big crime boss too, but
so do I.
Kind of right.
He's right.
But they already had the market cornered. We all hate monopolies. I get it.
Yeah. And there's only one real way to take down a monopoly, and it's fire bombings.
Or flipping the table over if you're playing the board game.
Yeah. Well, or firebomb the table.
Which is also acceptable.
I just always have a Molotov ready to be lit anytime there's board game night with my friends.
Anyway, he had a particular beef with the Catroni crime family and another DeMalo, another crime family that was kind of co-headed by the DeMalo brothers. He'd even like sent death threats to members and the heads of both gangs, which seems like a smart thing to do.
Not lacking in confidence. I
right. He had taken jobs as a hitman for the West End Gang, which apparently is or was one of Montreal's oldest and like most dangerous gangs, like outside of the mafia,
and one of their best Broadway plays you could ever
right.
see.
That's what I said. They really needed a better name.
Yeah,
it's like I'm with the West End Gang. Oh, really? You gonna snap at me? Sing a song?
You're right. I was just thinking, just marching down the street, snapping, and like, this is the worst hit ever.
And they are Canadian, so maybe that was what was considered like the worst thing in Canada. Was this gang sings songs that you don't want to hear. It's like they're terrible.
It's the worst thing in a lot of places here too.
Yeah, that's true. Blass also had his own criminal enterprise, so he wasn't just working for this gang. Eventually, he built up a small gang of his own. They didn't really say they had a name. It was just, his
Blass's
gang, right. And the minor fights that he'd been picking with his mafia rivals quickly escalated. So apparently he'd been getting into like bar fights and stuff. Anytime he knew somebody that was one of the members of one of these Italian crime families, he wasn't shy about picking fights with them.
I'm sure there's probably a little more depth to it, but I really do kind of like this story already as far as like a guy just deciding, you know what, I'm going to jump completely into the criminal underworld and just start some shit and see how far I can go.
Right. But his minor stuff really, really kind of starts to get out of control. On May 7th, 1968, Blass and an associate, I'm going to use a lot of words, they're basically just being, fellow gang members. But they planned an ambush to ambush and execute Frank Catroni, which was the head of the Catroni crime family. So, yeah, you're just jumping right fucking to it. Like, go after the Godfather. Right.
Find the guy whose name sounds the most like a delicious sandwich and take him out.
But as they lay in wait for their victim, they were spotted by a police officer who noticed them acting suspiciously, and he tailed them. So before they could murder Frank, they were interrupted by the officer. They were able to, run away before being arrested. But it's not great when you attempt to kill the head of a mob family and then have to be like, oh, shit, Frank, get out of here. Or not Frank, he's the one that they're trying to kill, but he was probably just getting in his car and somebody jumped out I'm gonna fucking kill you, and then you hear stop or I'll shoot, and you're just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, you're just saying the first step to any hit will be don't let the cops stop us.
Mm-hmm. So after the failed attempt, it kind of really pissed off Richard Blass that they were unable to kill Frank. So they escalated things even further and just started killing people. Really, they just started killing anybody that was Italian. On May 27th, he and his gang killed a man by the name of Giuseppe Calizza, very Italian name. But he didn't appear to have any connection to the mafia or crime families that Blass hated.
There's
really
just,
didn't say much about.
There's just something
some
about
Italian
any
guy.
story like this, like somebody named Giuseppe has to die, and that's
Well, good news, they haven't.
that's the tragedy.
But
of
he
this.
just seemed to be a random guy. Now, I don't know if maybe he ran a business that they frequented or this or that, but it said that there's no real clear connection to the mafia. About that same time, they also killed a man by the name of Francesco Grado, but he was a loan shark that was definitely part of the mafia. Then on June 9th, Blass and another guy ambushed a man by the name of Giuseppe DeMarco. So you get a twofer.
God damn it.
DeMarco was a law-abiding citizen, and he definitely had no connection to the mafia. The first one, it was kind of like, well, maybe this guy, just random dude, he was sitting in his car, and they shot him several times. Fortunately for him, he would live. Unfortunately for him, he'd live the rest of his life paralyzed.
This is going to create like a gang of Giuseppes to counter this.
And the Giuseppe gang sounds way cooler than the West End gang. I'm sorry.
Or the fucking whatever the fuck this dude's name was.
Just call him the Giuseppes. Yeah, this one's the Blass gang, really, that he's whatever. So while he had long ago made enemies of the prominent Montreal mafia families, the attempt on Frank and the subsequent string of murders made him a really, really big target. So then on August 24th, which would have been just like a month and a half after that one guy was shot in his car that survived, two hired gunmen tracked Blass to the bar where he was drinking and opened fire on him. Fortunately for him, neither of the men were that dual-wielding super killer Alexander Solonik that we talked about in episode 40, callback. Yeah. He managed to escape completely uninjured. So you get two hitmen that walk into a bar. I can imagine them kicking the door in and be like, "You're dead, Blass." Blah, blah, blah. And they just missed him completely. 2 weeks later, Blass was tracked to Le Manoir de Plaisance. I assume it's French for like the pleasant manor. But it was a motel in Montreal suburbs. Apparently deciding that Blass was just too hard to shoot, they instead set the whole place on fire.
Jesus fucking Christ, come on.
Right. The fire killed 3 people, but none of them were Richard, who again managed to escape unharmed.
Just get like a really big guy to like grab him. Like,
yeah. I mean,
what kind of organized crime is this?
That's what I don't understand is they're obviously, in none of these attempts are they like trying to be discreet. Like, I get it. We did that show way long a time ago about trying to kill Fidel Castro, the CIA's attempts, and that was fucking ridiculous in and of itself. But at least they were like trying to set up that like mouse trap board game like series of stupid events and make it look like an accident or something.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, hey, guys, just walk in there and shoot the guy. And it's like, oh, can't do it.
Well, it seems like a lot of, like, failed hits, and we've talked about them before on the show plenty of times, but, like, it seems like they all come from, like, the hitman themselves deciding that I'm only willing to do this if it's a way, like, I can run away really, really quick afterward. And it's like, you're still going to be wanted for murder, asshole.
Yeah, well, and I got to say, like, the shooting one, I probably... More has to do with if you're in this lifestyle, and he knows he pissed off these. He openly was murdering members of the gang and just members of their community. So, I mean, he had to know that he was a target. And he does have, like, other gang members. So, I mean, it's not as simple as just walking up to some guy at a bar and pulling a gun out of your coat, because you got to imagine he's kind of watching for it, and that there's probably other people around him. No hitman wants to also get killed in their attempt. But... you have the supreme advantage of surprise. You can strike at any fucking moment. It doesn't feel like it would be that hard.
Yeah.
I mean, what do I know? I've never tried to, assassinate somebody, but it just, in my mind, it seems like something that would be relatively easy to pull off if you don't get them the first time, the second time. But
I'm just saying, when we build up the non-essential gang...
What a great name for the gang, because you never rise to the FBI's most wanted list. You're they're non-essential.
They've botched every hit they've ever tried. So.
No, even if you're good, though, it's like the memo comes up, like, these guys are non-essential, and so the higher-ups are like, oh, okay, well, no need to devote resources to that.
Yeah. We will only put non-essential personnel on this case.
Anyway, So the fire didn't kill him, but it killed 3 other random people.
Also named Giuseppe. It's getting out of control.
This whole period of time in Montreal was just known as the Great Giuseppe Tragedy.
Yeah, bad time to be Giuseppe.
In October of that year, Francesco Catroni, who was one of the... he wasn't the head of... Frank Catroni was the head of the Catroni crime family, but he was Frank's brother. One of the DeMallo brothers, who was the head of that other crime family, and a third person planned to ambush Blass. So things are getting serious when the heads of these organizations are like, fuck it,
hey,
we're doing this.
I know we all hate each other, but we can all agree this guy is a big pain in the ass.
Yes. They I don't know how they planned it or whatever. It didn't really get into specifics, but as Blass and a fellow gang member, Claude Menard, were driving into a garage, I assume like a parking garage, they were ambushed. They were able to escape, however, when Menard drove the car through a fucking garage door and like down the streets of Montreal. So very like Hollywood-esque. But they didn't escape before Blass had been shot 3 times, once in the head and twice in the back. These wounds would require emergency care and hospitalization, but he survived. So it's like the 3rd major attempt on his life in about 4 months, and he survived them all. But anyway, Blass knew who had attacked him, but he refused to identify the attackers to the police, and that apparently actually earned him a lot of respect within the mafia. And so, like, at this point, their attempts on his life seemed to kind of stop. So, like, all you have to do is not die and then not, like, rat him out. And they're like, well, fair enough.
He took those 2 shots. He's got spunk.
But this was about the time that he had earned the nickname Le Chat. I think that's how it's pronounced, but it's French for the cat. Of course, talking about, like, how he must have 9 lives because he keeps escaping death. That's kind of how he's known now, the cat. But just a few months later, in January of 1969, so he wasn't even in the hospital that long after getting shot in the damn head and back. The head's kind of the more impressive one. But a few months after that, he and his gang attempted to rob a bank in Sherbrooke. I don't know where that's at, but I'll mention it in case you guys do. But the robbery went bad, and in an exchange of gunfire as he was making his escape, Blass shot a police officer. I'm just picturing
Officer
that,
Giuseppe.
like... It's just... yeah. Damn it! I knew I should have stayed home today.
It's like... It's not safe out there. You'll die. It's like, I got a job to do.
At least go by your middle name.
We gotta hide our kids. The fact our son's name is Giuseppe. What's his middle name?
Call him Pepe or something.
Giuseppe Reno.
But he shot a police officer, and he was arrested quickly after that. It sounded like a couple days. Like, I don't think it was like within his attempt to flee, but he was pretty well known, and they knew who had done it. It didn't take much for them to track him down.
I love, though, that, like, it wasn't too hard for them to track him down, but to fucking have a successful hit on the guy fucking took forever and all the resources in the world.
That's really why they're like, well, we'll use the excuse that he didn't rat on us, but we can't afford any more bullets. Like, we're just wasting them over here. He would be, for the attempted robbery and attempted murder of the police. I put attempted murder. None of the articles actually, they say he shot an officer. It made it sound like the officer didn't die, but really, criminally speaking, it's not that much better to shoot an officer and have him not die than it is to shoot an officer and kill them. Like, they're pretty similar in terms of your jail time. He was sentenced to 4 consecutive 10-year terms. If you're not familiar with that, a lot of times you hear these people, you get 2, 20-year sentences, but they're served at the same time. So it's really 1 20-year. It's the weirdest, like, fucking system. But 10 consecutive terms means that the one doesn't start till the last one ends, so 40 years in jail. However, in October, almost exactly a year after being shot himself, Blass and 8 other inmates overpowered prison guards and managed to escape.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, this guy just it goes. That's what I mean. It's one of the themes. Is we've talked about a lot of people that are just like, I want to do this thing, so I'm going to just fucking do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power in that.
Also, like, you know, how maybe less so now, but it certainly was a stereotype that was shown in like movies and stuff, like security and like stuff in jail. It was more an illusion of power and superiority. Like if all those guys just decided, get them, boys. You know, like, I mean, you're not going to be able to stop shit.
A lot. That's a scary ass job, and that's how a lot of the prison riots actually. What you're hinging on is them knowing that if they riot, some of them will probably die when police do eventually open fire, and nobody wants to be that one that dies, so nobody participates. Yeah. But when you convince enough people, like, fuck it, I mean, a lot of jails, it's like 100 to 1, you know, inmates to guards.
I'm just saying, so, like, you know, it would be terrible, and it would lead to the end of humanity, but if you just, like, planted that seed in prisoners, like, the death robots will come out if you start a riot, and we can't guarantee your safety if they do. Like, you know, I guarantee you that deterrent would work for a while. And then when the riot does happen and the robots turn out to be real, like, you know, there you go. And then there's the end of the world for you.
Right. But that's what... Blass was a man that knew, like, hey, there's more of us than them. Let's just escape. And that's what he did. It wasn't like some highly contrived, like, elaborate plot. It was just... more of us than them, let's overpower him.
Yeah.
His freedom didn't last long, though, and this was like 3 days. They did give the dates for these. When an anonymous caller called the police and gave them the address of the apartment where he and his wife were hiding, because apparently he was married prior to getting arrested, and he went and found his wife, and they were hanging out in her apartment. You know, nobody will think to look here. He would get another shot at freedom, though, 5 years later. And I'm going to use Wikipedia's wording here because I think this is hilarious. But when an unknown female associate of his was able to smuggle some firearms into the jail, the visitor's window was broken, and Blass and one of the articles said 4 other men. It just said Blass and some other men, armed with various types of guns and rifles, were able to escape. So I like that it starts with she, you know, was able to smuggle some guns in, you know, just like rifles and stuff. How the fuck do you do that?
Using the rifles as like stilts. Like, I'm a really tall woman.
So this one they did say was a pretty elaborately like schemed. It wasn't something that just came together overnight. But
you gotta just all tape to you all awkwardly, so you're just like the stiffest.
Like, why are you walking like that? I am a woman, sir. Leave me alone.
It's a very tight corset.
Blass was once again free, but he was also really pissed off. His former gang members Raymond Lauren and Roger Levesque, who had been accomplices in the botched bank robbery that had sent him to prison, had testified against him in trial, and in exchange, neither ended up serving any jail time themselves. Blass was not happy about that. So on October 30th, 1974, he walked into the Gargantua Tavern, great name for a bar, where the 2 men were drinking, and he shot them both to death. So we give this disclaimer a lot on this show, but while we often find like stories of killers and hitmen and some stuff interesting, obviously we certainly don't condone murder. But a lot of these people
I disagree. We're bringing him on next week to tell his side of the story. No. Yeah, they're fucking monsters.
Right. But they make for good stories because there's always something like behind the violence. Like in this case, like you said at the very beginning, this is what drew me to the story, is that he's just like, I think the mafia is cool. I'm going to overthrow them.
Yeah.
Like, he is certainly not a good person. We talked about how he was just started killing random Italians because he was mad at the Italian crime family. But like much of his hate and violence was actually aimed towards other criminals, and that kind of makes it a little easier to swallow.
Yeah.
So sometimes when these people like die and leave a legacy, that kind of leaves the door open for debate on just...
That's true for a lot of mafia stuff, and what really kind of cements them as evil, even though they are interesting, is what we were talking about with like I was making the jokes or whatever, but like, Giuseppe and the other victims who weren't involved in this world getting caught in the crossfire.
And really, even the ones that are, it's still not like okay to just like start murdering people.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I think even you would talk to like cops who are involved in cases like these, and for them it's like, a murder is a murder, but it's like a murder makes a lot more sense when you're seeing like somebody who was like a part of that world. And
right,
then,
and also you feel a little less. I mean, it's still a person, and a lot of them still have families, but it's like they were voluntarily in that world. They knew what they were signing up for.
Yeah.
Some dude named Giuseppe sitting in his car had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. That's and that's the big tragedy, is that like the damage these people do spreads out into innocent people's lives. But it's fascinating for sure. And
I'm not just talking, like criminal killers. We've talked about these serial killers and hitman, but even like we talk about the Old West outlaws and stuff. After the fact, there is that, at least enough of that there, that kind of opens the door for debate. Like, how bad were they really? Like, they obviously weren't good, but they're also, not always. You start to see them as a person and are not some like just despicable killer. But then other times they leave no doubt. So on January 21st, 1975, almost 3 months after walking into the bar and killing his former gang members, Blass decided something needed to be done about the witnesses. So he and another member of his gang went back to the bar and forced everybody there into a storage closet at gunpoint. They then locked the 10 men and 3 women in the room and set the bar on fire, burning all 13 people alive. So, yeah, Blass is just a terrible asshole.
Yeah, like that's,
Like, what are the...
he was out of his fucking mind at the beginning of this story. But that's, and everything after that hinted to this, but like that's just, fucking bloodlust. That's just psychopathic.
To be honest, it took me reading a couple articles a couple times before I caught it. Not that it makes it better. I mean, there's nothing good about that, but the way I initially read it was that he killed the 2 men in the bar and then decided we can't have witnesses and burn the rest alive, which, like I said, that doesn't lessen how bad it is, but you at least like see how that went down. But this was, he went back 3 months later, and just whoever happened to be in the bar at that time, he burned alive. Like, some of them were witnesses, but most of them probably were not.
And it's also just complete irrational to begin with to go that long and then be worried about a witness. Like,
but that made me wonder too. Like, there must have been talk going on. Criminals like this are connected to both the underground and like law enforcement and stuff. So he probably heard rumors like, oh, this person's talking about this or that. But again, there's no way all 13 of these people that were in the bar that night had anything to do with what had happened prior. Like, maybe the bartender and the owner, and again, that doesn't make it right, but what about the patrons that just happened to be there? He obviously didn't care. So anyway, killing 13 people, especially in such a manner, is a great way to kick off one of the biggest manhunts in Canada's history.
But there weren't any witnesses. How could this be?
Right. That's the other thing, is it obviously didn't fucking work.
Right. I'm going to make the biggest murderous spectacle of myself to cover up an earlier murder.
Police, within days, they tracked Blass to a chalet that him and a lover were hiding out at. Police broke through the door at about 1:20 a.m. and Blass came out of the bedroom. They opened fire, killing him. It said he was shot 23 times. But there's conflicting reports as to what actually happened that night. Police said that Blass had come at them with a gun. When Albert Lisasek, I think is how it's pronounced, he was heading the operation, and I actually left this out of the story because most of it, there's very little in the articles about Blass, about this Lisasek guy, but you can look him up. They actually had a back and forth. It was almost like the I'm trying to think of like a classic Pink Panther type, like whatever. Lisasek's, a lot of his career had been trying to catch Blass for the various things that he had been doing. So he wasn't just some random guy heading this like operation, this manhunt to track him down. He had a history with Blass. But anyway, he said upon entering, they found Blass and his lover in bed, and Blass was naked. Blass asked if he could go back into the bedroom to get dressed, and they said, of course you can. Then he came out with it. Sure, yeah. Then they said when he came back out, he had a gun, so they shot and killed him. That's really fucking stupid, because even if it was true, which it in no way was, if the guy wants to go back in this room and get dressed, sure, let him, but you fucking go with him. You're not just like, hey, you prominent gang member that just murdered 13 people, we'll take you on your word that you'll just come right back.
Blass has never lied to me in the entire time I've been hunting him as a criminal.
Other reports said that he did come out of the room, but he was completely unarmed. Any object that he had in his hand was just a black sock. Like, if he had anything, it was a black sock. Like, he was getting dressed, and they saw this black sock and were like, a gun! Boom. Really, it sounded like they just, all along, planned to kick the door in and shoot the shit out of the guy. Interestingly enough, his death came amid an already increased police pressure, or pressure on the police from just people regarding their unethical use of force. And even after what Blass had done, his slaying only further served to damage the department's reputation. So, like, it got out there that they'd gunned down this unarmed criminal, and even though he was a completely horrible person, they're like, see, this is what we're fucking talking about. So Lisa Sack was never actually charged with a crime, but he was demoted and relegated to desk duty for the rest of his career for that. So that's interesting to me, too. Like, and it's not wrong. I mean,
yeah.
If anything, you would make the argument that he probably should have been charged with. And it's hard to say because they said he was shot 23 times, and it was primarily him. But most police guns don't carry 23 bullets, so there had to be other officers firing. But that's a classic case of what you would call an unjust, police officer shooting.
Yeah.
Theoretically, the problem is the only witnesses are police officers.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's tough because, like you said, the guy is a total piece of shit, but, the law doesn't change because the guy you unlawfully shot was a monster, like, there is still a standard that needs to be expected of police. So, that's a weird one.
It was an end I didn't say. I mean, I expected him to end in a like blazing death, of gunfire, because that's a guy like him. That was the only way that story was going to end.
Yeah.
But then for it to turn around and be like, yeah, he was shot to death by the police, who were severely reprimanded for it. You're like, oh.
That's the thing. Like, if this guy's been trailing him for like so long. Maybe there was just that part of him of like, and I'm not saying it's right, but it's like him saying like, he's not going to stay in jail. He gets out every fucking time.
Or it was just that like he came out with hands up and he gave up and they were about to arrest him and he said, you've never been able to make anything stick before. I'll get out of this too. And it just pissed him off.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? But it was more interesting to me. That's not why I picked the story is because, like I said, it starts off and it's kind of this almost this anti-hero, but you're like kind of rooting for him.
Yeah, real action movie shit. Even if it's not morally right, it's fucking entertaining.
And then he gets this reputation for being unkillable, and then he breaks out of jail twice. You're like, cool. And then he burns 13 people alive.
And then it's like, oh, he actually has no regard for human life and is a monster.
Yeah. I didn't put this in my notes, but I read it in one of the articles. Just as a note, he was only 28 when he died, so it wasn't like he crammed his career into like that decade there of the 60s and mid-70s.
Makes me feel like I haven't done anything with my life.
I haven't even performed my first mob hit yet.
I didn't go up to like the top crime boss in my town and like slap him or anything. Like,
it's interesting. Like he would have had to have known probably because it's no secret that the mob was always like kind of entwined in like that boxing scene too. But we talked about it with somebody else recently. Like even if I was sitting here and I'm like, man, I like the mob, but I hate the people in charge. I'm going to go after. I wouldn't know where to fucking start. Like, I don't know a mob member, or I couldn't even tell you who runs like any of the gangs in Columbus. Like, I know there's
how hard do you look,
gangs everywhere.
Honestly? Like, nobody
That's
wants
true.
to
Maybe
find
I could
those
just
guys, but I'm sure you
I
just
guess
go
I've
to
never
some
tried
trashy.
Googling it.
Just go to some trashy bar, follow a drug dealer around for a little bit. You will eventually see a guy who looks way too fucking high up the totem pole.
Yeah, when the Lexus pulls up or something.
Yeah,
like, aha.
And that is the guy who you try to start shit with, and
I like that
get
they say
shot
Lexus,
immediately.
like that's the car that a mob boss would drive. You know, that's what I picture when I picture high-end car. A mob boss would be like the fucking like custom Mercedes or something, but
it would be a Ford Bronco. The most reliable.
Yeah, I really kind of wish that the guidance counselors in high school had made it more clear how easy it is to just have a crime family.
I don't think your future is in college, son. I think you need to build a criminal empire to rival everything else in town.
How do you feel about drugs and killing? Not doing them, but orchestrating it. Like, occasionally you'll have to get your hands dirty, but...
You know how fucking confused I would be if my guidance counselor asked me, well, how do you feel about human life? Like, wait, what?
You start to answer, you're like, I guess it's sacred. And they're like, no bullshit. I need their actual answer here.
No, well, does the idea of collateral damage for your profit bother you? It's like, wait, how'd I do on this test? Why are you asking me this?
Ends justify the means, yes, no.
Yes, just answer.
Look, I've only got one spot and it needs filled right now. That would be a great spot to have the mafia infiltrate. Now that I think about it,
guidance counselors.
Yeah, because you'd be able to you'd easily pick out the ones. Be like, man, this guy would be a great asset.
Yeah, he never shows up to class. He can make all these deliveries for us.
But he gets out of all the anytime he gets in trouble, he knows to weasel his way out. I like it.
And he never gives up names. That's most important.
So anyway, yeah, that's what I have this week.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like you said, I hope people, because we do tend to dwell in the fucking shittier side of human history on this show for entertainment, but it isn't a glorification at all. It is I hope our disdain for these types of fuckers comes through when we tell these stories, because it's there are people who actually develop these fandoms for evil fucking people, and
no, it's not something to look up to or be impressed with. They can be interesting, but
and that's a full conversation for another day. But
yeah. And in fairness, my interest in these people tends to gravitate towards the ones that end up fucking it up royally or something. This guy didn't really he did die, but
I can't really say that. I'm drawn to the worst pieces of shit for just no reason. But yeah, so I guess come back next week for more of the worst pieces of shit.
If you're out there, if you're still a member of Blass Gang, because this is back in the 70s, it's theoretical that you're still around. We take it back. Your founder was great. Don't kill us.
No, you can kill me. You fucked over Giuseppe's all around the world, and I'll never forget
tomorrow
that.
You take to Twitter to officially announce that you've gone to the courthouse and changed your name legally to Giuseppe, just to okay, bring it on.
Apologize to Giuseppe's all around the world before you even think about poking your head out.
I want reparations.
All right, yeah, we're done. Goodbye. I'm done. It's over.
Bye-bye.